Polyamory, courage to embrace what God has joined together. Welcome to the Priceless Podcast.
I have two names. So my official name is female. It's Olga Gerasimenko. I counsel quite some people in polyamorous relationships and polyamorous parents. And my name that a lot of my friends and significant others use is Lyoshka, which is a male name from my childhood. A big part of my knowledge comes from my personal life experience and from the involvement in the community.
My name is Frans. My full name is Frans Blokhuis. I'm from Amsterdam, from the Netherlands. I'm 28 years old. Yeah, and I don't have a professional background in polyamory like Lyoshka, but I do practice it, so I guess that's why I'm here.
You mentioned that your father is a pastor. So
yes.
How is your relationship with your family, if you're comfortable talking about this here?
Yeah, I can share a bit about that. I think my whole polyamorous situation has been a big elephant in the room for a long time in my family. And with some of my sisters, I've been able to talk about these things right from the start because they are pretty much on the same page. With my parents, especially, it has been a bit more difficult, where I kind of felt closeted again for a bit, and that was not a pleasant feeling because as queer people, we already were closeted once, and I got really allergic to this whole sense of being in a closet again. I just want my love life to be out in the open and to be celebrated, and I don't want to feel like I need to tiptoe around sensitive things. But we've come to a point where, I mean, I've introduced Manoj also to my parents, and actually they are pretty open to it. My parents, we don't talk about it a whole lot, but I know that they find it a bit difficult. I think they don't sort of celebrate it. So whenever I share something with them about my polyamorous life, or whenever I would tell them that I'm in love, they're like, oh, okay. There's no confetti. And they also say this to me, like, we find it hard to really celebrate with you, but it's okay. And you can, as long as you just be open about it. And so I think that's where we are right now. So there's, I think, room for improvement. But we're in a good place, and there is a lot of mutual respect. And I think that's a good starting point. Yeah.
Thank you. Lyoshka, you mentioned several faith communities that you're connected to. How do you feel accepted in those different faith communities?
Quite a question, It is quite a question because I remember one of my faith communities, going with hearts on Zoom when I mentioned that me and a dear person are now kind of picking up and starting dating from being friends. And it was such a warm feeling, such a feeling of being embraced and being felt and seen. But it's more complicated than that. I was really thinking when Frans was talking that, like, family-wise, I have a wonderful chosen family where I feel very secure. And I remember my one of my chosen parents sitting with me when I was heartbroken in the kitchen and going with her hand over my head and saying, "You're my polyamorous kid," without really kind of maybe having so much clue. And when I was heartbroken again, they called me and said to me, I get nothing about it. I just want you to feel good, and I'm there for you, and whenever you want to talk. And this was also, very embracing, and I really think people sometimes don't have to get a clue to embrace other people, to be close. And but even, sometimes in the communities that are very dear to my heart and that are very maybe accepting, as the European Forum community, maybe it's not even kind of, this inacceptance or something, but still you feel the stigma, you still feel this difference when you're mentioning your important, your significant relationships, and you talk with tenderness about them, and then person who's talking to you is telling, and this lifestyle you're practicing, and you're thinking, and it's in a group of people, and you're thinking, like, what if I said to you, and this lifestyle you're practicing and thinking about your family would be inappropriate, like would be totally inappropriate. Why do you tell it to me? So yeah, there is stigma, and the stigma shows in a way, and it's sometimes quite hard to be exposed to it. And basically this also depends on how exhausted, how worn out you are from the stigma in your life, because when it's not much, maybe it doesn't hurt so much, but when it kind of gets to you and under your skin, when it's too much of it, then even small things hurt.
Well, I hope that things will get easier for you, and I'm aware that I'm probably asking some questions that you're getting asked so many times that you might be already tired of all those questions. But I just want us all to be open, and that we don't have to understand everything to accept a human person. We don't have to agree on everything, but I think that we can still respect each other and learn from each other. And I'm so thankful that you're willing to answer all these questions, and hope that maybe if people listen to this podcast, that they will ask less questions and stop bothering polyamorous persons and people. So you can just tell them, oh, you want to know the answer to this question? Just listen to that podcast.
Here's a YouTube link. But I think asking questions in general is not a bad thing, as long as you maybe ask if it's okay to ask that question. And if you also, if it's okay with you if the person does not feel like answering. So if the answer is, oh, I don't want to answer that question, then that can also be a scenario. But I mean, I'm always open to answering questions, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when people want to ask more questions, and when they come from the point where they're genuinely interested, and they don't ask questions to kind of to put down or to measure or to evaluate, then it's very good when questions are asked. But it's also kind of, when I'm thinking about my faith community, and I didn't think about this Orthodox one, so the kind of the official position of the Orthodox Church. Oh, we quarrel about that a lot. What is the official position of the Orthodox Church? Can you extract something and to say that's the official position of the Church? But sometimes I've been like embraced, by the Orthodox people quite a bit, and not always maybe from the point of really getting a clue, really understanding or whatever, but from the point of love. And that's so important. And I think it's also kind of something very mutual, very reciprocated. There are some religious practices, for instance, that I don't get, and I don't have to get them to respect people for whom they are dear.
Yeah. I think
so
the hard
really
thing...
Borders.
Yeah, I think the hard thing for us is that we don't like to feel uncomfortable, and new things make us feel uncomfortable. But the thing is, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. We don't have to feel comfortable all the time, because that's how we learn. Anything that's new that we have to learn is uncomfortable. As you, Lyoshka, said, that's how rainbows come about. Without rain, there is no rainbow. Mm-hmm. Well, my next question is actually, what brings you joy or makes you thankful for being polyamorous? And maybe you already mentioned some things, but not in this way, but maybe you can just accentuate. It doesn't work. My tongue doesn't work anymore. Accentuate. That's how I wanted to say it.
Yes. Yeah, so the comparison thing is definitely a beautiful thing. I can totally recommend it to anyone. Like this feeling of love that is exploding. It's like love times love that you feel when your partners are being are being loving to each other. It's a beautiful feeling. Another thing that brings me joy is, I would say, sort of the fact that I know that I'm gonna fall in love in the future, and it's gonna be fun, and it's something to look forward to in a sense. Although it's just gonna happen when it's gonna happen. But I like to have this sort of idea that I haven't met everybody that I'm gonna love yet. Whereas I think that a lot of monogamous people would say, like, oh, I've met the love of my life and we're married now, and so this is going to be it for the rest of my life, which can be great as well. But I really like this whole notion of I don't know all my lovers yet, and I think that's an exciting thought to me.
What makes you joyful and thankful for being polyamorous?
Well, who makes me joyful and thankful for being polyamorous are definitely people in my life. Other people, I rejoice here in France talking about his relationships, and I don't have like really a strong preference. Like polyamory is like more cool than monogamy. Well, it's not. It's just truth about my life, and I enjoy when people live truth about their lives. But it's definitely something I'm wired for, because I'm so wired for compassion. I'm so wired for being open to the relationships. And maybe it's this joy of seeing all those people in my life, being happy to be part of it, to finding some way to be part of it, and finding places for me in their lives. That's definitely it. And maybe it's also, all this freedom to be yourself, freedom to find all those different solutions, to be very flexible. And I was thinking about, like, maybe not having this part of relationship escalator where you have to do some certain things, but you're discovering, all the time you're discovering something about love, about people you love, about how God is present there in your love life. And that is something wonderful, and it's a lot to learn, and this learning and this hard work that comes with it, and this honesty is also something I enjoy enormously. And it's really maybe really kind of this reality of life. So it's not how it should be. It's not trying to somehow adjust your life to what it should be, but discovering your life as it is, discovering the lives of your dear people as they are. And it's so much not coinciding, but it's so much beauty in this not coinciding. So when I was preparing and thinking about your questions, basically what I was doing for the last several days, I've been talking to the dear people of mine, asking, can I share this story and can I share this story? And one of them said, oh, you can share every story, Lerlin. You can even share this very, very, very special story from the very beginning about water lilies, which still stays like one of the most beautiful memories. And it was like this for the person, and it was like this for me. And then we kind of relived, this memory. Remembering it, it was really special. 20 minutes in the water lilies in +12. A very rare experience at 5 a.m, if I remember correctly. But having it this special, it was absolutely not about it having been all rainbow and all wonderful things only, because we've during this experience we held quite some boundaries that were tough to hold, definitely very tough to hold at this time. And us having some boundaries there in place, being very honest, very mindful about those boundaries, being quite frustrated about them, it did not make this experience any less. Basically, it made this experience more. It made us being more congruent. It made us to enjoy more what we were enjoying there, without maybe dismissing the whole experience because it was somehow awkward or the boundaries were somehow loosey. We held those boundaries, and it made it beautiful for us. And this is also maybe where it coincides for me, or where it connects to me with my faith, with living the truth of my faith, living the truth of my life. When you talk about polyamory, there are plenty of those misconceptions. One is you're told that it's so hard work. And it's so much about, just laying back in the arms of people that love you and enjoying the miracles that just fall, from the sky or from, the arms of people that love you. And at the same time, there is this misconception that says it's all about ease, it's all about convenience, and it's not. Love is never about ease. Love is never about convenience. It's about discovering it's there. And what is my part in it? What am I doing with it? What I am responsible for, and how do I take care of it? So, having this richness and this fullness is my joy in it, pretty much.
I like that, what you said. Thank you. So we already talked a little bit about some misconceptions, and of course some of my questions are even coming out of misconceptions. So can you tell us a little bit more about what the biggest misconceptions of polyamory are?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and this is also something that I was thinking a lot when I was introduced to polyamory at first, is this whole idea that the more partners you have, the more shallow the relationships are somehow. So the less intimate you really get. You can get the most intimacy out of one relationship, and if it's shared over more than one person, then it becomes less and less intimate. And I always like to compare this with sort of the metaphor of a cake, and you can give everybody a piece of cake, but the more people you want to share the cake with, the less cake everybody gets. And polyamory has sort of taught me to stop thinking in that metaphor, and to start seeing love and intimacy as more of a fire. And the funny thing with fire is there is no such thing as dividing up a fire. If you take one flame and you put a piece of wood next to it, you get two flames. There's no such thing as half a flame. So fire expands, and fire sort of multiplies if you share it with other people. And that's really something that I learned from polyamory, is that love is not something that is scarce. You can never sort of give your last piece of love to someone. Love is abundance. There's an infinite resource of love, and there's always more love to share with people. And especially if you share it, I think it will multiply. It will become more. I think that's a beautiful image.
Although we have talked about it, but somehow maybe coming from this exclusivity that is so rooted in our culture, it is somehow supposed by the people outside often that you have this rivalry with your metamours who are your partner's partners, that you somehow tolerate them because they are there and you have to tolerate them, but better they would not be there. That you maybe kind of have to negotiate more space for you, and so you compete with them in a way. And this can be the case, but in my relationships and in my experience talking with other people, I'm afraid to kind of overgeneralize, but quite often it is because the relationship is somehow not working for you, and then it is like this. And when the relationship is working for you, and when you love the person who loves their partners, then it's part of them so much, their love for the partners, and it's so much respect in it and so much happiness in them loving their partners, that it's absolutely amazing. Maybe it also makes possible all those honest talks. And of course, one of the misconceptions is that you don't have jealousy when you're polyamorous. Of course, we are having heaps of jealousy, and it gets worse when it's like more insecurity. And sometimes you don't feel it at all when there is no insecurity and when you feel very grounded and very happy. But I want once again to share a story that a friend said I can share. It was a story about them being very much in love, falling very much in love with a person with whom and with metamours of whom they were having like a very complicated thing. And then when their common friend saw them again, the common friend mentioned that you have this jealousy. And my friend said, "Oh, it's all okay now. We talked about it." And then this friend said, "How do you polyamorous people do that? It's not possible. You can't have this enormous jealousy." And then you just talk about that and then it's gone. But that's exactly how you deal with jealousy. You talk through that and you go through that. And you don't try to stuff it away, to put it away, or to find some context where you don't feel it. You trust it when you feel it, in theory, or at least you try to trust it when you feel it. And one more thing that I wanted to share, and maybe I also already spoke about it, it's not having those pre-agreements so much. Franz also talked about it. Like, agreements are important for people to feel safe, to have something to start with. But it's more processing than having agreements. It's more maybe presenting your needs. And you can't say, "We had this agreement, so I'm doing that no matter what you feel." It matters what you feel, even if we had this agreement. If this agreement is not working for you anymore at some point. And it definitely is not possible to say, "We didn't have this as an agreement, so I'm doing it." Maybe we didn't have this as an agreement, that we don't pull the chairs, out of the sitting people. You cannot have, everything reglementized. But if the person who is in a relationship with you is feeling unhappy, is feeling insecure, is feeling sad, pay attention to that. You don't say, "That's the agreements we're having and I don't bother, you do bother." So that is maybe about those misconceptions that come to my mind.
Before we continue, we'll take a short break. We'll be back in 30-ish seconds, so stay with us.
I'm thinking about different ways how to engage more people in supporting this podcast. And some people said, be more aggressive.
Hey, you! Support this podcast or I will...
Well, I tried, but it didn't work that well. So if you want to become a supporter of this podcast, please click one of the links in the podcast description.
When you think about challenges, what do you find as the greatest challenge or challenges with polyamory?
Yeah. Well, of course, we live in a monogamous culture, or at least I do here, even in Amsterdam. Even though people think it's super progressive, there's still a lot of monogamous rules and mindsets here. And I was brought up within that monogamous mindset, so I was always taught that love works a certain way, and it was always according to monogamous views on love. If you switch to polyamory, a challenge is that there is not a lot of resources out there for you to really navigate polyamory and to understand how this works and how all these different relationships work. So for me, that's, I think, a challenge. It also has to do with representation. If I turn on the TV, I always get to see monogamous couples. If I listen to pop music, they always sing about monogamous love. And so you really have to sort of invent your own wheel, so to say, and sort of, figure it out as you go. And that can be challenging, especially in the context of stigma and judgment. Finding your path, it can be difficult. But then, I mean, the resources are there. I mean, there definitely are books and podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff like that about polyamory. So if you look it up, you will definitely find them, but they are a bit harder to find than all the resources that there are on monogamous love.
Maybe I can just share one of them, because I have thought about it. It's like maybe being judged as a person who is looking for exclusivity. Of course, there's stigma, and stigma is very hard. It's this stigma in the society, and but this being judged as though you're looking for exclusivity, that's something exhausting. And I would so much love for us people seeing where we are. And when we are being honest with each other and talking from our hearts, to just listen to what we are talking and not to think what we are hinting at, or, kind of what could be behind it. Because life would be so much easier if we just spoke our hearts, and if we mess up, then we would say we mess up. And,
all we need is not to forget that we're talking to a human being, to a person that has feelings whenever we disagree, and that these people are not much different and don't have that different needs than we have. They're probably the same. So, and we all need to be loved and accepted and respected, and that's part of who we are and what we need. So whenever you disagree with someone and talk to them, just know at the end they just need to be loved and accepted and not judged, accepted as who they are, even if we disagree.
Thanks for those
words. Taken seriously.
Yes, taken seriously. Yeah.
For me, that was a big struggle, I think, especially with my parents, where I felt like I wasn't taken seriously. I felt like they were only worrying about me and maybe saw this as some kind of rebellious phase. Like, Frans is now in Amsterdam doing his sort of catching up with his teenage years because he spent them in the closet. No, for me, it's super serious. And I really, I thought about it and I read about it and I did a lot of study and research. And it's about very strong feelings that I have and people that are super important to me in my life. And I really need that to be taken seriously. I don't want that to be seen as some kind of, rebellious, sort of kicking my background or being a rebellious teenager. It's me, it's who I am, it's what I've been thinking about, it's what makes me happy. Yeah.
What would you like to see in society that would make your life as a polyamorous person more enjoyable?
Yeah, I think, again, it has a lot to do with the representation. So I would love to see more representation in the media, more diverse representation as well. Every once in a while, there's maybe a series where there's a polyamorous relationship, but then often something goes wrong, or there's not a happy ending, or it's kind of the kind of representation that I'm not really looking for. I would love to see stories, television shows, movies where polyamory is just there and it's not really the main topic of the medium of the movie or of the television show, but it's just there and people are happy and they are living it, and that would be really nice, because I don't really see that a lot, if ever. Yeah, and I think that would be very helpful for polyamorous people also to normalize it. And I think the way we organize our society is really built around couples of two. If we look at our economical systems, marriage, all these things, it is not possible to legally have more than two partners. So yeah, that would definitely be nice if that would change. If people would recognize and acknowledge that love is not always fixed between two people, but that there is a lot of diversity there. I have nothing against monogamy, but I think that a lot of people are monogamous for the wrong reasons, and they are monogamous out of fear and because they have never heard of polyamory, and if they do, they immediately feel overwhelmed by all these fears that they have and insecurities. And I think if we stopped raising our kids with the idea that with sort of the Disney Prince Charming meets the princess image of monogamous love, I think we can create a generation of people who are a lot freer and maybe also a lot more secure about themselves. And I would love to see that. I would be very curious to see how that what that would look like. So yeah.
I actually met some people who discovered that they're polyamorous throughout their monogamous relationship. So what would you tell them to maybe encourage them, or that could help them on this journey of actually starting to be open? Because you mentioned polyamory is about honesty and openness. It's not something that you hide and do in the secret. So what is maybe a good way to start talking about this to their partners that are now or think that they are in a monogamous relationship?
If you're entering, from the point of your partner, having your partner and your partner not being sure about polyamory or not being polyamorous, I have thought of that, and I have already told that for me it is very crucial to share the mess, not to come up to your partners with ready-made solutions, something like this. To say what is alive in you, what some nonviolent communication people say, and to listen to what is alive in them, and to believe there is a path. There is a path for you. Maybe this path doesn't look like what you believe now it should look like. But that is kind of the whole thing about relationships, that we do not know where the path leads us. And we can trust ourselves, we can trust God, and take the path and love each other and feel the frustration when we feel the frustration, and just move forward, be honest, and look for the solutions which are taken everybody's needs into account this way or other.
Yeah. When you say they discover that they are polyamorous, I guess what you mean is that they probably notice that they are developing feelings for someone else outside of their current existing relationship. So, there's a lot of things that I would tell them. First of all, I think I would tell them that it's okay to have those feelings. I think a lot of people would immediately feel a lot of guilt or feel like there's something wrong, something's the matter, something's wrong with their existing relationship. It's not. And that's the great news of polyamory, is that you can definitely have these feelings for multiple people at the same time. So don't worry too much about that. And then, I would definitely recommend trying to have those difficult conversations with your partner about this and be honest with them. I also think a lot of times in these situations, maybe couples can have the conversations, and maybe the scenario can be really nice where they sort of find each other and they say, okay, you know what, let's go for it, let's do this. But then they always, or not always, but they often have sort of the tendency to set up some rules to sort of keep them sort of safe, or they might feel like they keep them safe. It's very important to always keep in mind that this new person, this new love interest, is also a person with feelings and with fears, and is actually very vulnerable by sort of entering your existing love life and your relationship. So please do bear in mind that the rules that you might set up can at some point harm this new person. I think a lot of couples who open up their relationship, they develop feelings for someone and there is this sense of attachment with this new person. But then as soon as it gets too intimate for them, or if they feel like it's out of their control, they fall back to those rules that they had set up. Like, okay, you know what? I want to end it right here, right now. I'm using my sort of veto right. I'm telling him to end this relationship with this new person. And then what happens is that the new person is on their own again, and the couple just lives on together, and they have each other. And this is a very painful situation for this new person. So definitely, be careful with that. And with, I would say, before you sort of delve into it and really sort of limitlessly date and try to start with really investigating and also being really honest about the fears and the insecurities that you have. And read about it and listen to podcasts like this one, and sort of make an effort to really do some research. And if you feel the need to set up rules, really try to honestly ask yourself, why do I want to set up this rule? And is it really because I think it will benefit the situation, or is it because I still have some fears and some doubts, and I want to be safe and sort of have a rule to fall back on? And I think a lot of the times, if you're really honest, the truth is that you have some insecurities and you need the rules to sort of be able to deal with the insecurities. But I think, you will get a lot further if you can put aside the rules for a while and sort of dive into the deep and take a leap of faith. And but also from a background of, like I said, from a basis of research and communication and honesty and openness. I think that's very important. But please be aware of the feelings of the new person, because that goes wrong a lot of times. Where the couple is just like, oh, you know what, they can be in our relationship, but only under certain terms and conditions. And as soon as we don't like it anymore, we will just throw them out again. That can be very painful. So that's something to keep in mind, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Franz. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for answering my questions that might be totally stupid. But
no, they're not.
I'm glad that we talked about them, because these are questions that come up for me, that I heard also from other people, and I really wanted to talk about them. Thank you for your openness. Thank you, Lyoshka. You're not with us anymore at this point, but thank you so much, yes, for your input and for everything you shared, your story. For both of you, what I said before, it's such an honor to sit here and listen to the stories and just, enjoy this energy of openness and sharing and the connection that I feel to you. And I really felt so relaxed with both of you. Thank you, dear listeners and viewers, for being with us, for watching this. As always, the links for this topic will be in the podcast description. This podcast was made in partnership with the European Forum of LGBT Christian Groups. Subscribe, like, comment. Of course, I would encourage you to be respectful. And just suggest this podcast to other people, that they listen to it, that people that might find this helpful. Thank you, everyone, and see you for the next episode. Bye, everyone, and bye, Franz.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for your curiosity. It was very nice to have this conversation with you.